Hi and welcome to Dirtbike's 2020 Dual Sport video series. Now we have the kingpin of all the dual sport bikes, the KTM 500EXC. This is easily the most talked about and most desired dual sport bike of the bunch. Everybody wants a KTM, everybody at least wants to know about a KTM. It might be on everyone's wish list. Is it that good? Well, it's hard to say much bad about it. For 2020, the bike got a new frame. It got all new bodywork. You can't really tell the difference in the new bodywork versus the old one, not like you can on the Husqvarna side. It is pretty much a new bike. The head as well is the head that came on the 2019 Motocross edition. You add up all that, it's not necessarily a new bike, but it's significantly changed and it's worth another look. The biggest change, probably, of all for 2020 is suspension. They're still the same components. You have the WP Explorer fork up front and PDS suspension in the rear without linkage. But this year the settings are all new. More than anything else, it's stiffer. And if you paid attention to last year, that was our main complaint with the bike. It was a little too soft, a little too spongy for real dirt use. And again, that is how we measure our dual sport bikes, is how well they perform off-road. This bike has all the big features that we've come to expect in KTM. It has a Brembo hydraulic clutch, Brembo brakes, Nick and oversized aluminum bars, and pretty much top-of-the-line components everywhere. The bike's biggest trump card, as usual, is the fact that it's light. 244 pounds without fuel on our scale. It is the lightest of the big dual sport bikes. Now, some of that is a little bit misleading. It comes with Continental TKC 80 tires, which are excellent street tires, not so great in the dirt. Right off the bat, we replaced those with STI Tech 2 tires. We had to install the rim locks as well. If you put full knobs on the wheels without rim locks, you'll spin the tube almost immediately. Now, the rim locks do come with the bike. They're offered in the kit that comes on the side, but you have to install them yourself. Once you do install them, the wheels get a little out of balance. You'll have to rebalance them just like you would any dual sport bike, especially if you're only running one rim lock in each wheel. That was the only modification we made before we could really go dirt riding with the KTM. Again, this is a premium off-road bike. It's the one that everyone talks about, everyone wants, and we can see why. With the difference in suspension this year, the performance is a level higher than it was. Now you can take the bike pretty much on any ride with your full-time dirt bikes, with your two strokes, with your crew that goes up on all the gnarly tough stuff, and the bike performs excellent. The one area where KTM has really made huge strides over the last 5 years is the EFI mapping. This is fully EPA legal, it's clean, it's quiet, and yet the bike doesn't hiccup or overheat the way EPA bikes usually do. If you stalled it, it's because you weren't trying very hard. This bike runs super clean right off the bottom. It still has the reed valve in between the airbox and the throttle body, which is a feature that was introduced a few years back. We didn't quite get it at first, now we do. People have taken these out without really good results. Basically, we've ridden those bikes. We prefer the bike stock. It isn't the most powerful bike in the world. In fact, it isn't even powerful among other 500 dual sport bikes. But it does have the sweetest power characteristic. It performs great from the very bottom all the way up. It starts to taper off somewhere in the upper mid-range, but by then, the bike's done good work. With the PDS no-link rear suspension in the rear, it opens up a lot of opportunities that you might not have with linkage suspension. The bike is very good at climbing over logs. It has increased ground clearance and doesn't hang up. That's why all the off-road purists love PDS suspension. That is the main difference between the KTM 500EXC and the Husqvarna FE501 Dual Sport. The two bikes are very similar in most ways. They have the same engine. They do not have the same frame because of the PDS rear suspension. Other differences between the Husqvarna and the KTM, the most significant, of course, PDS suspension. There's also the airbox, and there are a number of suppliers that are different on the two makes. In the dirt, We love this bike. It's light, it's easy to ride, the clutch has an easy pull, the brakes are powerful. It's all you can ask for in a dirt bike. There are a few components that we would like to see upgraded. The rear fender and the license plate bracket are constantly moving around. We're afraid it's going to get caught in the rear wheel, especially once you put on more aggressive tires. But overall, it's really hard to pick faults in this area. When you compare this dual sport bike to the state-of-the-art even 5 years ago, it's a huge improvement. On the road, the KTM is fairly comfortable, at least as dirt bikes go. The seat is good for a couple of hours. It has hand guards with good wind protection. The mirrors are very substantial. In fact, so much so that you might want to take them off before you go into the dirt. But once again, we view the license plate as a means to connect trails. This is a dirt bike, and we evaluated it that way. This isn't the type of bike you would buy for going to work or going to school. That would be a terrible waste of its potential. Is the bike worthy of its place at the top of the dual sport hierarchy? Well, it is expensive. $11,199. It is the second most expensive of the dual sport 500s. We think it's worth it though. Very few bikes will hold their value as well as the KTM. As long as it's not destroyed, a few years down the road, it's going to depreciate much less than a motocross bike. You should check out the price of the 07 KTM 525EXC, which was one of the first of the KTM dual sport bikes. Those bikes are still worth a ton. How does it stack up against the other 500cc dual sport bikes? Well, you're going to have to wait until our 500cc dual sport shootout, which is coming up in a few months. But in the meantime, keep on looking for more dual sport videos. And as always, go to dirtbikemagazine.com for all the latest news, race results, and tests in the dirt bike world.